What's going on, everybody? So I'm going to talk about, a few different things tonight. When whenever you go to prison, you find yourself in jail, everyone has a lot of people remember the arrest. They remember, what they were doing. They might talk about it even. They might not talk about it. It just depends on the person. But a lot of people, majority of people, I think, probably remember, if not the first time, definitely the first time that they were released. So we'll talk about getting released and what that entails and consists of, and what it entailed for me, and what you may be able to expect for you. So it's lovely weather tonight. It's been raining, kind of drizzling all day, all morning. And so I'm looking at it now. It's about 4 o'clock in the morning almost, so fairly late. But yeah, so depending on the environment where you're released from, whether it's a jail or a prison, that kind of matters. It kind of differentiates itself in that respect, but it really doesn't. It's still the same, pretty much the same process. And to talk about release, you kind of have to go back to like reentry and think about what you're going to do when you get out. If you have a plan as far as a parole plan or whatever, if you're getting out from prison, people to stay with if you're getting out from jail. Jails typically tend to not have as many requirements as state or federal prisoners when you're released. From my perspective, when I was released from state prison, you had to have a parole plan in place. It looked good anyway to the parole board. So you have to have a place to go to that's been checked by the Probation and Parole Authority, in your given area, to see if it complies with the conditions of parole. So those include several things, but chiefly among those is you can't typically have other convicted felons living there unless it's a halfway house type environment, which is where I was released to. Can't have any weapons there. You can't have, if you have certain other restrictions that apply that are unique to your situation, then you have to think about those as well. But when you're getting released, there's a lot of things that go on, from your perspective, but they may also go on from a perspective you may not be able to see yourself. So that consists of things that the state may be doing, consists of things that your local county or city may be doing. I know in Kentucky, there's actually a statute that says when you're released from prison that the state has to notify, I believe it's the police chief or the sheriff of that area that you're going back to, or any area that you're going to. So say you're from, a certain city in a given state, and that's where you're from. It's where your charges occur, where your crime happened, and you're going to another city within that state. They still notify that police chief or that sheriff of that county you're going to. So there's a lot of things that lead up to actually getting released. And the main thing you have to start out with, I guess, from a perspective point of view, is you have to know when that date's going to happen. And that date typically isn't something that isn't known to you. You know when you're going to get released. There's been cases of people that stayed in jail or prison for days or weeks or months or even years after their sentence was over, and that happens. I can show you cases where that's happened, news articles and those kinds of things. It's usually a mix-up, or it may just be an incompetent, staff or whatever there at the facility, but it has happened. People do get lost in the shuffle, and they do stay longer than they have to. But at any rate, you have your release date. That date is set by either sorting out your sentence or being granted parole, discretionary parole or mandatory parole, depending on your state or your jurisdiction. And then a date's given. So you have a date. You're supposed to work your resources and those kinds of things up to that point, to where when you get out, you at least have a place to go to. A lot of states and cities say that they won't release you from their facility and then just let you walk out in front of the building and try to catch a ride or something. People have thought about maybe doing that, I guess. In my case, I was released on June 1st of 2015, and that date was, it kept kind of fluctuating, but I did get some some good time credit, some educational credit, and that changed my release date effectively. It kind of bumped it up, and then I got a hard notification basically that I was going to get released finally on June 1st. There was some paperwork I had to file, to accept the release, I guess, basically. I'm not sure if I'm phrasing that right, but a lot of paperwork you have to file that day. That morning, it starts out pretty early, a lot earlier than everyone else, because you're not going to go and do the same things they're going to do that everyone else in the prison or wherever are going to do. You're going to have to go, there's a checklist that may occur depending on how your place does it. You're going to have to go ahead of time and turn in some things like your excess uniforms. You may have to get personal items that are in property if that applies. You got to turn in your laundry, your excess laundry that you have. You have to go around and get like a checkout sheet signed. So that consists of you going to, whether it's the kitchen, if you work there, your main work assignment, wherever that may be, you may have to turn in things like that. Any kind of, I know I was a legal aid when I was released, so I had to have the library was in my area was checked for any kind of contraband as far as diskettes or anything like that. If I had any tapes checked out from anybody, if I had anyone's case files checked out from the library or whatever, if you had any library books checked out, those have to come back then. You go to laundry, you turn in your laundry, your any kind of excess items you may have, razors and whatnot. Should have already gotten rid of those by then, I would say. But you go to the other place. You go to the educational building. If your facility has a school, you get signed off for that. You have to go to administration and get signed off there. There's a bunch of different little places you have to go through. Your dorm to make sure they've taken you out of the count at some point. And then from there, in my case, we were held at one of the main buildings on the campus of the place that I was at, and we were there pretty much all day. We went to lunch in groups, or breakfast in groups, and we were kept together. We were kind of separate from the count that day because we were going to be, out that day. We weren't going to be there, the entire day, and it was kind of a separate deal because we were getting out. Frankfort, I live in Kentucky, so the Kentucky Department of Corrections, Frankfort had to go through some stuff to make sure that I was who I said I was and that, I was getting released. They confirmed things. I'd heard that Kentucky tends to check and offer information out as far as detainers. So if a state or a jurisdiction wants you, they get notified that you're getting released so they can come and get you if they like, whether it's another state or county or the federal authorities. They may come and get you to deal with an issue that you may have had back in the day. Whenever that misdemeanor, felonies, other things like that. That's going to be the time that's going to happen. You're going to find out about that typically. You may have known about it before, but the day that you're released is the day that you finally found out, if they're going to show up or not. And then from there, it's a waiting game. It's more hurry up and wait. So you have the checks that you've done as far as your paperwork to get signed off. Speaking of check, when you're released, had a little technical difficulty doing there. When you're released from prison, what tends to happen is that you will often get the balance of your money you may have had on your account, whatever that may be, whether it was your state pay that you had from the facility, the little Ford logo cameo there. I'm not trying to do that, but all right, just kind of power through it here. You have any money you had on your commissary account, your inmate trust fund account. That money is going to be given to you in the form of it depends on the places. I know some places do it by a check. They issue a check from whatever their bank is. Some places do it by like a prepaid type card, like a gift card almost, or a debit card kind of thing. It just depends, but you're going to get that money either that day, or if it's a check, you don't have a bank account, obviously. So you're going to have to go through and try to deal with that, depending on how much money it was. In my case, I think I left with about $7. So it was a grand total I walked out of prison with $7. And that was it. And you have some personal items you may keep. You're allowed to keep your mail. any mail you may have had. Pretty much everything that I did have other than, personal effects, I did get rid of them. Any kind of commissary, whatever, I got rid of that because I'm going to society. I don't need those things. I had people that I knew, that I came to know while I was in prison. I wouldn't say that we were friends, but, excuse me, they're there. They're going to be there longer than I am. They're not getting out. So some people that take everything they have, take it with them. That's their choice. But honestly, I wanted to leave as much stuff as I could behind there because I wasn't going to use any of it ever again. I didn't want any of it ever again. And that was my way, I guess, of, letting go of all that. But, yeah, so you have a bunch of things you have to do, a bunch of things the state has to do, and then finally you're released. So where do you go? And that's when reentry comes up. That's when the places that you may go comes up. And that's when your plan starts to begin to kick in and hopefully gain some traction, because that's where the beginning of this journey when you get out of prison starts, basically, is when you get out the day you're released. I know that I remember very vividly thinking back to, when I was actually released, and that feeling and that apprehensiveness, and there was an anxiety, certainly. The facility I was released at was a minimum security facility, and I was released from there, and I was transferred to a halfway house. It wasn't a halfway house that I believed that I would be going to, and the issue there was something happened where probation and parole didn't check out the place that I wanted to go to, so it wasn't approved in time. Excuse me. Wasn't approved in time, so I had to go to this other place because, again, the state can't just let you out of prison and let you out. They have to send you somewhere where they can kind of... I was on parole, so it wasn't like I was totally served out of my sentence. So, I had to go somewhere where they could, I guess, keep track of me still. So I went to a place in Newport. Absolute crap hole, don't recommend it. Nice aquarium. Other than that, not worth going through or going to that city at all, I don't think. But after about a month, I went to the place that I was wanting to go to, that I was meant to go to, and where things kind of really started, and I got kind of a hold of things in my affairs. But the weird thing was, I was on parole, and I was released from the state facility, the Blackburn, the minimum security camp, and I was transferred by state car with a guard who was armed with handcuffs in the back of the car. So that was a little strange, but that was the last vestige of custody and control, in the sense of still being an inmate parolee in that sense. I felt more like an inmate at that point than a parolee, certainly. But yeah, so that was my release, and you're going to be scared. You're going to be, like I said, apprehensive and anxious, nervous, kind of expectant of different things to happen. And I remember going into the place. This was all within the same day. It was, late at night when we finally got in there, and walked into the place, kind of got some basic things as far as bedding and those kinds of things. And then went to this room they had, and late, everyone's asleep. And that was the first day. So I remember the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and it's been 5 years since. Come up on 6 here next year, the next few months. But that first day, June 1st, 2015, of release, June 1st, 2015. Sorry. Something you don't forget. And there's a lot of people that they have multiple release dates because they've been out, they've been in, they've been out, they've been in, and it's not that I want to have another release date, because you don't, if you're any kind of intelligent, you don't want to have another release date, but it's an experience. It's something you go through, and it's something you remember, and you can hopefully learn from, because above anything, jails and prisons are very good for leaving that light on for you, and they will keep a bed and keep it warm for you because somebody's just been in it. So do good, get good, and take care of everybody. That's all I've got. Release video. So if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below, and I will get back. Thank you.